Close your eyes. The past is about to speak. When you think of the Victorian era, you might imagine quiet, gaslit parlors where families gather around a piano, or perhaps elegant ladies and gentlemen taking a civilized stroll through a manicured park. It's an image of order, propriety, and a certain peaceful, candle-lit romance. But for the millions of people tossing and turning through the long, dark nights, that peace was a distant dream. The reality of their world, especially when it came to something as simple as sleep, was a bizarre landscape of dubious science, moral panic, and cures that were often worse than the ailment. Frankly, given their idea of a restful evening, you probably wouldn't last a single night. Before we delve into this strange world, feel free to post your location and the time where you are. It's always nice to know where in the world our fellow listeners are settling in for the night. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You are lying in bed, but sleep feels like a distant country you've lost the passport for. The first thing you notice is the air. It's heavy, thick with the ghosts of the day. The faint, acrid memory of coal smoke from the fireplace, the sharp scent of beeswax used to polish the towering mahogany wardrobe, and a musty, almost sweet smell of old paper from the books piled on the nightstand. There's no fresh breeze. The window, a tall sash of rippled glass, is sealed shut, not just against the chill of the London night, but against a more insidious fear, the night air. It's a widely held belief that the evening atmosphere is a toxic miasma, a foul vapor carrying all manner of diseases. So you lie there, breathing in the same stale, recycled air, feeling it grow warmer and closer with every restless turn. Your eyes drift open, adjusting to the gloom. There is no true darkness here. The room is a battlefield of shadows, cast by the single, low-turned gas lamp in the hallway, which leaks a sickly yellow light under the door. Every object in the room seems to loom, to hold a strange and imposing presence. The wardrobe is not just a piece of furniture, it's a dark fortress in the corner of the room. The dressing table, cluttered with silver-backed brushes and porcelain trinkets, becomes a miniature, chaotic cityscape. The room is full, so incredibly full. This is a testament to the Victorian love of ornamentation, a design philosophy that seemed to fear empty space above all else. Historians often refer to it as a display of newfound middle-class wealth, a way to show you could afford the factory-made goods that were flooding the market. Every surface is draped, carved, or covered. Heavy velvet curtains, the color of dried blood, swallow any hint of moonlight. The wallpaper is a dizzying pattern of climbing roses and thorny vines that seem to writhe and twist in the faint light. Even the ceiling has not escaped, decorated with ornate plasterwork. It feels less like a sanctuary for rest and more like a cluttered storeroom for the anxieties of the day. There is no minimalism here, no clean lines to soothe a troubled mind. The sheer visual noise of the room is exhausting. You shift, and the bed beneath you protests with a series of soft groans. It's a fortress in its own right, a high-sprung behemoth of horsehair and wool, topped with a feather mattress that has a tendency to develop hills and valleys over the course of the night. You are currently nestled in a deep valley, and climbing out of it feels like a genuine physical effort. The sheets are linen, cool at first but now clammy. Your nightgown, made of fine but unforgiving cotton, feels tight across your shoulders, and the scratch of its lace collar is a tiny, persistent irritation against your neck. You pull the blankets higher, a mountain of wool and thick quilts. Their weight is meant to be comforting, a physical pressure to pin you down into sleep, but tonight it just feels suffocating, another layer of the room's oppressive atmosphere pressing down on you. The sounds of the house are a quiet symphony of unease. The most dominant is the slow, ponderous tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hall. It is the metronome of your insomnia, each tick a reminder of a second slipping away, each tock a confirmation that you are still awake. The old house settles around you, its wooden bones creaking and groaning with changes in temperature. A floorboard upstairs gives a loud pop, and you hold your breath, listening. Was it just the house or something else? From outside, the city is not silent. You can hear the distant, rhythmic clip-clop of a horse pulling a late-night cab over the cobblestones, the sound fading in and out. A dog barks somewhere down the street, a sharp, lonely sound. There is no gentle hum of a refrigerator, no electronic hums to fill the space. There is only the clock, the house, and the city's intermittent murmurs, each one distinct enough to snag your attention and pull you further from the edge of sleep. You try to find a comfortable position, but it's a futile exercise. The pillow, stuffed with feathers, is a lumpy landscape. You punch it, you fold it, you try to arrange it into a supportive shape, but it resists, offering no real comfort. You think about the advice you've been given: a warm glass of milk, counting sheep, a pastoral fantasy that feels absurd in this dense, urban room. You've tried to clear your mind, but your mind is as cluttered as the bedroom. Worries about finances, about family, about the sermon you heard on Sunday, all churn together. Some doctors write that sleeplessness is a sign of an overactive intellect, a condition of the modern, civilized mind. Others whisper it is a sign of a moral failing, a hidden sin that robs the soul of its peace. Historians still debate the true extent to which these moralistic views impacted personal lives, but as you lie here, you can feel the weight of that judgment. Is this your fault? Are you not trying hard enough to be virtuous, to be calm, to simply sleep? Despite this oppressive, unscientific, and deeply uncomfortable environment, millions of people did find their rest here. They adapted. The weight of the blankets became a familiar shield against the cold. The ticking clock, for some, was a lullaby, a steady beat in the quiet of the night. The closed window was a mark of safety, a barrier against the perceived poisons of the world outside. This ability to carve out a space for rest, even in a room that seems designed to prevent it, speaks to a fundamental human resilience. But for you, tonight, that resilience is wearing thin. The room is not a haven, it's a cage. And as the grandfather clock begins its slow, metallic preparations to strike the hour, you know it's going to be a very, very long night. The clock in the hall clears its metallic throat, a series of whirs and clicks that are somehow more grating than the ticking itself. Then the first chime rings out, a low, resonant tone that vibrates through the floorboards. It is followed by a second, 2 o'clock in the morning. A wave of frustration, familiar and bitter, washes over you. It feels like a personal failure. Everyone else in this house, in this city, is presumably lost in a peaceful, unbroken slumber. Only you are left awake, a solitary prisoner in your overstuffed cell. Lying here any longer feels impossible. The bed has become a place of torment, not rest. With a sigh of resignation, you decide to abandon the pretense of sleep. You swing your legs over the side of the high bed, and your bare feet meet the shocking cold of the polished wooden floor. A shiver runs up your spine. The air in the room, once just stuffy, now feels thin and chilly against your skin, a stark contrast to the oppressive warmth of the blankets you've just left behind. You stand, your cotton nightgown rustling softly in the profound quiet. The shadows in the room shift with your movement, seeming to deepen and retreat as you make your way to the door. You open it carefully, wincing at the small creak of the hinges, and step into the hallway. The gas lamp is still burning low, casting long, distorted shadows down the corridor. You turn the small valve, and with a soft hiss, the flame grows, pushing back the darkness and filling the space with a warmer, more functional light. You don't feel tired in the way you would expect. Your body is weary, yes, but your mind is strangely alert, clear, and active. This isn't the fuzzy, disoriented feeling of being jolted from a deep sleep. It's a different state of consciousness altogether, a quiet, contemplative wakefulness. And here is the great secret that your modern anxieties have forgotten. This is entirely normal. You are not suffering from a sleep disorder. You are simply in the space between your first sleep and your second sleep. For centuries, this pattern was the standard for most of humanity. People would go to bed not long after dusk, sleep for 3 or 4 hours, and then wake up for a period of 1 to 2 hours. This waking period, known then as the watch, was not a time of panic. It was a useful, accepted, and even cherished part of the night. Historians, for many years, overlooked the vast number of references to a first sleep in old diaries, court documents, and letters, often dismissing them as poetic turns of phrase. It wasn't until a wealth of evidence was compiled that we rediscovered this lost rhythm of life. So, as you stand in the hallway, you are not failing at sleep. You are succeeding at a sleep pattern your ancestors would have found perfectly ordinary. What does one do during the watch? The options are as varied as the people themselves. You pad softly down the hall to the small study. The room is cool, smelling of leather-bound books and old paper. You move to the writing desk, your fingers tracing the cool, smooth wood. This is a time for quiet activity. You could sit and read by the light of a single candle, the rest of the world silent around you. It's a perfect time for prayer or spiritual contemplation, a moment to connect with the divine without the distractions of the day. Many people use this time for intellectual work. You might take out a journal and a pot of ink, the scratching of your pen on the page the only sound in the house. You write about the events of the previous day, your thoughts, your worries, your hopes. The act of putting them on paper feels clarifying, a way to impose order on the chaos of the mind. This was also a time for intimacy. For a husband and wife, this quiet interlude was often a moment for private connection, free from the exhaustion of a long day's labor or the presence of children. Some medical texts of the period even advised that this was the best time for conception, when the body was rested from its first sleep. It wasn't all so serene either. For some, it was a time for chores. A woman might do some mending, stir the embers of the fire to make sure it would light easily in the morning, or check on a sleeping child. Some people would even slip out to visit neighbors, sharing a quiet pipe or a bit of gossip in the moonlit hours. It was a recognized and sociable time, an entire period of the day that has now vanished from our collective experience. You look at the inkwell on your desk, and you feel none of the modern panic associated with waking at 2 in the morning. There is no glowing phone screen to check, tempting you with an endless scroll of anxiety-inducing news and comparisons. There is no pressure to immediately fix your sleeplessness and get back to bed. The concept of a solid, uninterrupted 8-hour block of sleep is a relatively new invention, born from the artificial light of the Industrial Revolution and the rigid schedules of factory work. For you here, the night has a texture, a rhythm. It is divided into two halves with a calm, productive valley in between. As you sit at the desk, the house wrapped in silence, you realize the gift of this time. The frantic energy of the day has dissipated. The demands of work and society are hours away. This is a moment of pure, unadulterated solitude, a time for your mind to stretch and breathe. The earlier frustration you felt in bed begins to melt away, replaced by a sense of calm acceptance. This isn't a disorder, it's an opportunity. You are not an insomniac in a world of perfect sleepers. You are just a person living according to a biological clock that beats to an older, more natural drum. You dip your pen into the ink, the small sound echoing in the stillness. You are not fighting the night anymore. You are joining it, using its quiet hours as they were meant to be used. The idea of a second sleep no longer seems like a far-off goal, but a natural conclusion to this peaceful interlude. When your mind has unburdened itself and your body feels a gentle, natural weariness again, you will simply go back to bed and drift into the second, often deeper, sleep that will carry you until morning. This was the strength of the people of this time. They didn't fight their own nature. They built their lives around it, finding productivity and peace in the deep, dark heart of the night. The quiet contemplation of your midnight watch begins to fade. A gentle, familiar drowsiness starts to creep back into your limbs, a sign that your second sleep is calling. You carefully blot the ink on your letter, screw the top back on the inkwell, and make your way back to the bedroom. The bed, which only an hour ago felt like a torture device, now seems inviting. You slip back under the heavy blankets, and this time the world does dissolve into a peaceful, dreamless state. But it doesn't last. A few hours later, you are awake again, long before the sun. This time is different. The calm clarity of the midnight watch is gone, replaced by a dull, throbbing headache and a familiar, grating sense of unease. Your second sleep was too short, too shallow. The day will soon begin, and you have not had enough rest. The problem, you decide, must be rooted in your physical self. Perhaps your digestion is off, or your blood is too thick. This is a common belief, the idea that the stomach and the mind are deeply, almost mystically, connected. The path to a peaceful night, therefore, begins in the kitchen. You swing your legs out of bed once more, the cold floorboards less shocking this time, and make your way downstairs. The house is still dark and quiet, but the first hints of a gray, pre-dawn light are filtering through the windows. You enter the kitchen, a large, cavernous room with a stone floor and a massive iron stove that stands cold and silent. The air is cool and smells of yesterday's onions and old grease. There's no flicking on a switch for instant light. You have to find the matchbox and light a small oil lamp, which sputters to life, casting dancing shadows over the copper pots hanging from the walls. Your first line of defense is a simple one, recommended in numerous domestic health manuals: a cup of warm milk and honey. It's a remedy that has survived into the modern age, a comforting, almost primal ritual. You find the milk in the larder, a cool, dark pantry. It's in a ceramic jug covered with a small muslin cloth. You pour some into a small saucepan, the glugging sound loud in the silent kitchen. You place it on the stove, but of course, the stove is not on. You must first build a small fire, a tedious process of arranging kindling and coaxing a flame to life. The smell of wood smoke soon fills the room. As the milk warms, you stir in a spoonful of honey. The resulting drink is sweet and comforting, but as you sip it, you can't help but feel it's a flimsy defense against the powerful forces of your wakefulness. When simple milk fails, you move on to more medicinal preparations from the pantry. A popular recommendation is a bowl of gruel. It's bland, it's boring, and that's precisely the point. The theory, espoused by many health writers, is that any food with strong flavor or rich ingredients will overexcite the system, stimulating the brain and preventing rest. Sleep, therefore, requires a diet of profound dullness. You mix oatmeal with water, a pinch of salt, and nothing else. No sugar, no cream, no fruit. You cook it over the now steady fire until it's a thick, gray paste. You sit at the heavy wooden kitchen table and eat it slowly. The taste is as bland as you'd expect, a grainy, starchy nothingness. It's like eating warm wallpaper paste. You imagine your brain being gently coated in this blandness, its troublesome thoughts being smothered by the sheer monotony of the meal. There is no Yelp review to warn you away from this culinary cure. There's only the hopeful, and frankly, desperate belief that this gastronomic self-flagellation might work. Still feeling restless, you consult a small, well-worn book of home remedies that sits on a kitchen shelf. It suggests another cure: onion porridge. Yes, you read that correctly. You are to chop an onion, boil it in water until soft, and then mix it with breadcrumbs to form a thick, soupy mixture. The logic, as far as you can tell, is that the soporific qualities of the onion will be delivered directly to your agitated stomach. You chop the onion, your eyes watering, the sharp smell filling the kitchen and mingling unpleasantly with the wood smoke. You boil it, the smell intensifying, and then stir in the breadcrumbs. The resulting concoction is a lumpy, translucent slurry that smells powerfully of boiled onion. It looks and smells like something you would serve as a punishment, not a cure. You take a tentative spoonful. The taste is overwhelming, a watery, pungent assault. This is not gentle humor. This is a genuine hardship. People were so desperate for sleep that they would subject themselves to this. Historians often debate how seriously these folk remedies were taken in the face of emerging professional medicine. But for the average person without easy access to a doctor, the kitchen pantry was their first, and often only, pharmacy. These recipes were passed down through generations, their effectiveness more a matter of faith and tradition than scientific proof. They represent a deep-seated belief that nature, in its most basic forms, held the keys to health. The problem was an imperfect understanding of how those keys worked. You push the bowl of onion porridge away, defeated. Your stomach is now full of warm milk, bland gruel, and the ghost of a terrible onion brew. You don't feel sleepy. You feel slightly nauseous. Your headache is still there, a dull ache behind your eyes. You've followed the advice, you've embraced the bland, you've put your faith in the pantry, but your mind is still whirring. The cures from the kitchen are not working. They are a testament to human ingenuity and the desire to find solutions with the tools at hand. But they are also a testament to desperation. The willingness to consume something so unpalatable speaks volumes about how torturous a sleepless night could be. As you sit at the kitchen table, the gray light of dawn slowly filling the room, you realize you are no closer to rest. You are simply a person with a full stomach and a weary mind, facing the impending start of a long and difficult day. The onion porridge sits accusingly on the kitchen table, a monument to your failed culinary cures. The first real sounds of the day begin to filter in from outside. The rumble of a delivery cart's wheels on the cobblestones, the distant shout of a vendor setting up his stall. The day is coming for you, ready or not, and the thought of facing it on such fractured rest fills you with a deep physical weariness. Your body feels heavy, your mind sluggish. It's clear that passive consumption is not the answer. Your next attempt at a cure must be more active, more forceful. It must be prescribed. You dress for the day, not in the comfortable, forgiving clothes of the modern world, but in the rigid armor of Victorian respectability. For a man, it's layers of wool, a starched collar that chafes your neck, and a tightly knotted cravat. For a woman, it is a corset that cinches your waist and restricts your breathing, multiple petticoats, and a heavy dress. Just getting dressed is a workout. There's no athleisure wear, no simple t-shirt and jeans. Your clothing is a constant, physical reminder of your place in society, and it is not built for comfort. This restrictive attire is the uniform you must wear for your next prescribed treatment. The vigorous walk. Your doctor, a man of stern pronouncements and unwavering confidence, has been very clear on this point. Sleeplessness, he explained, is often caused by a stagnation of the vital fluids or an indolence of the constitution. The modern mind, with its endless worries and intellectual pursuits, becomes detached from the physical body. The cure is to reunite them through strenuous, non-negotiable exercise. He has prescribed not just a walk, but a specific regimen. You are to walk for at least 2 hours every afternoon, regardless of the weather. The pace must be brisk, purposeful. This is not a leisurely stroll for smelling roses. It is a forced march against your own internal lethargy. You step outside. The city air hits you immediately. It's a complex, potent brew. The dominant scent is coal smoke, a constant, gritty haze that hangs over everything, catching in the back of your throat. Beneath that is the smell of horses, a very real and very present smell, and the sharp, organic tang of their manure, which litters the streets. There's also the smell of commerce. Roasting nuts from a street vendor, tanning leather from a nearby workshop, and the faint, pervasive smell of the river, which carries the city's industrial and human waste. You take a deep breath, not of fresh air, but of this thick, urban soup. You set off at the prescribed brisk pace. The streets are a chaotic ballet of motion. There are no traffic lights, no pedestrian crossings. You must navigate a turbulent river of horse-drawn carriages, carts, and omnibuses, their iron-shod wheels creating a constant, rattling din on the stone streets. The drivers shout at each other, at their horses, at pedestrians who stray too far into the roadway. The noise is relentless, a wall of sound composed of clopping hooves, rattling wheels, street cries, and the general hum of thousands of people going about their business. You have to remain constantly alert, sidestepping a pile of refuse here, dodging a rushing delivery boy there. It is not a relaxing experience. Your doctor has also instructed you on the proper form for this walk. You must maintain an upright posture, chest out, shoulders back. This is not just for physical benefit. It is a moral posture, a display of vigor and purpose. Slouching was seen as a sign of a weak character, a physical manifestation of laziness or despair. So you walk, ramrod straight, your restrictive clothing making every step a conscious effort. The corset digs into your ribs, reminding you to keep your core engaged. The starched collar reminds you to keep your head high. You can feel a fine layer of sweat beginning to form under your many layers of clothing, a damp, uncomfortable feeling with no escape. This belief in the bracing power of exercise was a cornerstone of Victorian health philosophy, a reaction against what they saw as the effeminate, sedentary lifestyle of the previous generation. For them, physical hardship was a path to virtue. A walk in the freezing rain wasn't something to be avoided. It was an opportunity to build character, to harden the constitution against illness and weakness. Historians see this as part of a broader movement known as muscular Christianity, which linked physical strength with moral and spiritual health. The goal wasn't just to tire yourself out for a good night's sleep. It was to discipline your body and, by extension, your soul. You march through the city's parks, which are an oasis of green but are still governed by rigid rules of conduct. You walk along the river, the smell growing stronger, the sights more industrial. 2 hours feels like an eternity. Your feet, encased in hard leather shoes, begin to ache. The muscles in your legs burn. This is the goal, of course. You are supposed to return home in a state of complete physical exhaustion. The theory is that your body will be so depleted, so thoroughly spent, that it will have no choice but to surrender to a deep and immediate sleep. Your overwrought mind will be silenced by the screaming protests of your muscles. As you finally turn for home, the sun is beginning to set, painting the smoky sky in shades of orange and gray. You are, as intended, bone-weary. Every part of you aches. You have walked miles, navigated chaos, and endured discomfort. The physical exhaustion is undeniable, but as you climb the steps to your front door, a familiar anxiety still hums beneath the surface. Has the walk truly quieted your mind, or has it just added a layer of physical misery to your mental restlessness? You are about to trade the chaotic noise of the city for the quiet ticking pressure of the house at night. You have followed the doctor's orders to the letter, a testament to your own resilience and determination to find a cure. But as you close the door behind you, shutting out the city, you wonder if you've simply exhausted your body without calming your spirit, setting yourself up for a night of lying sore and awake in the dark. You return home from your prescribed march, every muscle groaning in protest. The process of removing your daytime armor, the corset, the starched collar, the heavy wool, is a relief, but it leaves you feeling sore and exposed. You eat your dinner, another bland and uninspiring meal designed to prevent any nervous excitement. A simple poached fish, some boiled potatoes. No spice, no wine, no joy. You are following the rules, you are doing everything right. Your body is exhausted from the walk, and your stomach is filled with offensive, sleep-inducing food. This, surely, must be the night that sleep returns. You retire to your bedroom, the same overstuffed, airless room as before. You lie down in the lumpy feather bed, the heavy blankets pressing down on you. And you wait. The physical exhaustion is there, a deep, aching weariness in your bones. But your mind, perversely, seems to have woken up. It's like a rebellious child, refusing to be silenced by mere physical fatigue. The day's events play back in a loop. The near miss with the carriage, the face of a street urchin, a snippet of conversation overheard in the park. The grandfather clock in the hall begins its steady, relentless ticking, the metronome of your renewed anxiety. Hours pass. The physical exhaustion curdles into a painful restlessness. Your aching legs twitch, your back throbs. You are too tired to move, but too awake to rest. The walk has failed. This is a new level of desperation. You have tried wholesome, natural remedies from the pantry. You have tried the doctor's prescribed physical regimen. Both have left you defeated. It is in this dark, quiet moment of despair that you turn to another, more alluring option. You rise from your bed and go to the locked drawer of your dressing table. You retrieve a small, dark glass bottle. The label is a work of art, a beautiful, intricate lithograph of a sleeping woman surrounded by angels, with elegant, curling script that promises peaceful, restorative slumber. This is the world of patent medicines. These concoctions were the Wild West of Victorian pharmacology. In an era with little to no regulation, anyone could mix together a few ingredients, put it in a fancy bottle, give it a grand-sounding name, and market it as a cure for anything and everything. The advertisements were ubiquitous, appearing in newspapers, magazines, and on posters plastered across the city. They made bold, almost magical claims, promising to cure not just insomnia, but also coughs, consumption, cancer, and female complaints. They were often framed with heartfelt testimonials from satisfied customers, painting a picture of miraculous recovery. There was no Food and Drug Administration to check their claims or test their contents. Buying a patent medicine was an act of pure faith, a gamble taken in the dark. You hold the bottle in your hand. It's called Dr. Barton's Celebrated Soothing Syrup. The name itself is a comfort. A doctor must have formulated it. Celebrated implies it is popular and effective. Soothing is exactly what you crave. The instructions are simple. 1 teaspoonful for an adult upon retiring. may be repeated in 2 hours if wakefulness persists. There is no list of ingredients. This was a crucial part of the marketing. The formula was a closely guarded secret, a mysterious elixir whose power lay in its mystique. Why would you trust a simple, known substance when you could have a secret, powerful formula? Historians who have analyzed the contents of these old patent medicines have discovered a rogues gallery of potent and often dangerous substances. The secret ingredient was almost always one of two things: alcohol or opiates. Many soothing syrups were packed with alcohol, sometimes containing a higher proof than whiskey. They were essentially cocktails marketed as medicine. A dose would certainly make you feel drowsy and dull your anxieties, but it was a crude and addictive solution. It didn't provide healthy sleep, just a stupor, often followed by a nasty hangover. This is one of the era's great ironies. A society so concerned with the moral dangers of the public house was willingly bringing unlabeled, high-proof spirits into the nursery and the bedroom. You unstopper the bottle. The smell is sweet and slightly herbal, with a sharp medicinal undertone that you can't quite place. It's the smell of promise. You pour a careful teaspoonful onto a silver spoon. The liquid is thick and dark, like molasses. You hesitate for a moment. A small part of your mind, a flicker of rational thought, questions the wisdom of this act. You have no idea what is in this liquid. It could be harmless sugar water, or it could be something much more potent. But the exhaustion and the desperation are stronger than the fear. You have to try something, anything. You take the spoonful of syrup. The taste is intensely sweet, cloying, with a strange, bitter aftertaste that coats your tongue. You chase it with a sip of water from the glass on your nightstand. Then you lie back down and wait for the magic to happen. At first, nothing. The clock ticks. Your legs ache. But then, slowly, a change begins. A pleasant, spreading warmth starts in your stomach and radiates outwards, through your chest and into your limbs. The sharp edges of your anxiety begin to soften, to blur. The relentless whirring of your thoughts slows down. The ticking of the clock seems to fade, becoming less of a torment and more of a distant, irrelevant sound. A heavy, languid feeling settles over you. This is it. This is what the bottle promised. It's a feeling of being gently unmoored from your worries, of drifting on a calm, syrupy sea. Your eyelids feel heavy, impossibly heavy. The room, with its looming shadows and cluttered surfaces, dissolves into a comfortable haze. You are not fighting for sleep anymore. You are sinking into it, a willing surrender to the mysterious power of the bottle. The last thing you feel is a profound sense of relief. You have found the cure. You have found the peace you were so desperate for. For tonight, at least, Dr. Barton's syrup has worked. The question of what is actually in it, and what the cost of this chemical peace might be, is a problem for tomorrow. The sleep granted by Dr. Barton's celebrated soothing syrup is not the restorative rest you crave. It is a thick, dreamless, and unsettlingly deep state of unconsciousness. When you awaken, it is not with the gentle clarity of a good night's sleep, but with a jolt, as if you've been pulled up from the bottom of a deep, dark well. A gray morning light filters through the heavy curtains. Your mouth is dry, with a foul, chemical taste clinging to your tongue. A dull headache pulses behind your eyes, different from your usual tension headache. This one feels heavy and stagnant. You feel groggy, disoriented, as if parts of your mind are still submerged in the syrupy depths of the night before. This, you soon learn, is the price of your bottled peace. It offers escape, not restoration. For a few nights, you continue with the soothing syrup, telling yourself the side effects are a small price to pay for the guaranteed oblivion. But soon, you notice you need a little more to achieve the same effect. The single teaspoonful is no longer enough to silence your racing thoughts. You start to augment the dose, just a little, then a little more. A dependence is quietly, insidiously taking root. You begin to look forward to the sweet, cloying taste, to the warmth spreading through your belly, to the gentle slide into unconsciousness. But the waking hours become increasingly difficult, a foggy landscape of headaches and lethargy. The cure is beginning to consume the day. Recognizing that Dr. Barton's syrup is a blunt instrument, not a sustainable solution, you decide to seek a more respectable and scientific remedy. You consult your doctor again. He listens to your tale of woe, his expression a mixture of sympathy and stern disapproval. He dismisses the patent medicine as quackery for the uneducated masses. For a person of your refinement and intelligence, he says, there is a proper, medically sanctioned solution. He walks over to his polished wooden cabinet, unlocks it with a small brass key, and produces a bottle. This one is different. It's a simple apothecary's bottle with a plain printed label. It reads, "Tincture of opium." He explains that this is more commonly known by its poetic and romantic-sounding name, laudanum. Here is one of the most shocking truths of the Victorian era. Laudanum was everywhere. It was cheaper than gin, easier to obtain, and socially acceptable for all classes, particularly for women. It was the go-to remedy for a staggering range of ailments: pain, coughs, diarrhea, anxiety, and of course, insomnia. Famous poets and writers extolled its virtues, describing the fantastical dreams and profound insights it could produce. It was given to teething babies to quiet their crying. It was a staple of the middle-class medicine cabinet, sitting right next to the bandages and the smelling salts. We can only speculate about the sheer scale of the addiction that must have gripped society, as it was not yet understood or stigmatized in the way it is today. It was simply medicine. Your doctor handles the bottle with a casual reverence. He explains that this is a refined and powerful tool. Unlike the crude patent syrups, this is a pure, predictable compound. He gives you precise instructions for its use. You are to use a dropper to measure out exactly 5 drops into a small glass of water before bed. No more. He stresses this point. It is a tool to be respected, not abused. The goal is to calm the overwrought nerves that are preventing sleep, to gently soothe the system into its natural rhythm. He assures you that in such small, controlled doses, it is perfectly safe. That evening, you approach the ritual with a sense of solemnity. This is not some mysterious syrup from a huckster. This is a powerful substance prescribed by a man of science. You fill a small glass with water. You unscrew the top of the laudanum bottle and carefully squeeze the rubber bulb of the dropper, drawing up the dark, reddish-brown liquid. The smell is bitter and astringent, a sharp, chemical scent that is very different from the sweet perfume of the patent medicine. You hold the dropper over the glass, your hand steady, and release the drops one by one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They cloud the water, turning it a murky, unappealing brown. You stir it with a spoon and drink it down. The taste is profoundly bitter, a vile flavor that makes you grimace. You get into bed and wait. The effects of laudanum are different from the soothing syrup. The onset is slower, more subtle. There is no sudden wave of warmth. Instead, it's a gradual, creeping sense of detachment. The physical aches from your long walks seem to dissolve. The constant, low-level anxiety that has been your companion for weeks begins to recede, as if a tide is going out, leaving behind a smooth, calm expanse. It doesn't so much make you sleepy as it makes you indifferent to being awake. The ticking of the clock continues, but you no longer care. Your worries are still there, but they seem distant, unimportant, like events happening to someone else in another room. You close your eyes, and the darkness behind your eyelids is not empty. It's filled with slowly swirling patterns and colors, a gentle, passive light show. These are the reveries that the poets wrote about. It's not quite a dream, but a waking state of profound imaginative freedom. It's pleasant, beautiful even. It feels like your mind has finally been unchained from the mundane world and is free to float in a more interesting, more colorful dimension. Sleep eventually comes, not as a surrender, but as a gentle, logical next step on this journey of detachment. For the next week, the 5 drops of laudanum work perfectly. You sleep through the night and wake feeling surprisingly clear-headed, the grogginess of the patent syrup noticeably absent. You have found the perfect balance, the scientifically sanctioned key to unlocking your rest. You feel a sense of triumph. You have tamed your insomnia with discipline and modern medicine. But the human body is an adaptive machine. By the end of the second week, you notice the 5 drops are no longer quite as effective. The reveries are less vivid, the detachment less profound. The old anxiety begins to whisper at the edges of the calm. You know your doctor said no more than 5 drops, but perhaps just one more, just 6 drops, would be enough to restore the perfect peace you felt that first night. It's a small, rational adjustment. What harm could one extra drop do? It is on this seemingly innocent, logical decision that the gentle slope of dependence begins to steepen into a much more treacherous cliff. You are trying to solve a problem of the mind with a chemical, and that is a bargain that rarely ends well. The single extra drop of laudanum becomes 2, and then 3. You find yourself chasing that initial, perfect calm, but it remains elusive, a ghost in the machine. The sleep it provides is still a welcome escape from the torment of wakefulness, but the days that follow are growing stranger. Your mood swings wildly, from moments of placid, dreamy detachment to periods of intense irritability. Your appetite wanes. You feel a constant, low-level nausea, and the world seems to be viewed through a thin, gray veil. The very cure that promised to restore your natural balance is now creating a profound imbalance of its own. You are caught in a classic trap. You feel unwell because of the medicine, but you are afraid to stop taking it for fear of the sleeplessness that will return, magnified and vengeful. Recognizing you are on a dangerous path, you make a decision born of fear and a flicker of self-preservation. You pour the rest of the laudanum down the sink, the bitter smell filling the air for a moment before it's gone. You lock away Dr. Barton's soothing syrup. The chemical path is a dead end. You must find another way, a cure that will shock your system back into order rather than sedate it into submission. This decision leads you to one of the most popular and, frankly, terrifying health fads of the 19th century: hydrotherapy, or the water cure. The theory behind hydrotherapy was championed by charismatic figures like Vincent Priestnitz and was wildly popular among the middle and upper classes. It was based on the idea that most ailments, including insomnia, were caused by impurities in the body and a lack of vital energy. The solution was to use water, in its various forms and temperatures, to stimulate the body's natural healing forces, flush out toxins, and restore vigor. It sounded natural, wholesome, and scientific. The reality of the treatment, however, was anything but gentle. It was a regimen of systematic, therapeutic shocks. Your first foray into this world is a home treatment, prescribed by a new, forward-thinking doctor who is a great advocate for the water cure. He instructs you to take a cold sitz bath every morning upon waking. You are to fill a small tub with cold water, as cold as it comes from the tap, and sit in it, with the water covering your hips and abdomen for 10 minutes. The shock of the cold water, he explains, will invigorate the abdominal organs, draw blood away from the overstimulated brain, and tone the entire nervous system. You follow his instructions with grim determination. You fill the tub, the sound of the splashing water echoing in the chilly bathroom. You take a deep breath and lower yourself in. The cold is breathtakingly, painfully intense. It's a violent, physical assault. Your body's immediate reaction is to gasp, to fight, to escape. Every muscle clenches. You force yourself to stay put, breathing in short, sharp gasps, your teeth chattering uncontrollably. 10 minutes feels like an hour. When you finally get out, your skin is bright red and tingling, and you are shivering so hard your whole body shakes. It is, without a doubt, invigorating. You feel intensely, painfully alive, but relaxed, ready for sleep. Not in the slightest. You feel as though you have just survived a shipwreck. When the home treatments prove insufficient, you are advised to visit a proper hydrotherapy establishment. These sanatoriums were often located in picturesque country settings, promising a retreat from the filth and stress of the city. You arrive at a large, imposing building, surrounded by beautiful gardens. It looks like a luxury hotel, but it is, in fact, a medical facility dedicated to the worship of water. You are given a strict daily schedule. The day begins before dawn with being woken by an attendant who wraps you tightly in a wet, cold sheet. This is the wet sheet pack. You are then bundled in so many dry, heavy blankets that you are completely immobilized, like a mummy. You lie there in the dark, the clammy, cold sheet clinging to your skin. The initial shock is immense, a deep, penetrating cold that seems to reach your very bones. Your body fights it, shivering violently. The goal is for your own body heat to overcome the cold of the sheet, eventually warming it up and creating a sort of personal steam bath within the cocoon of blankets. This process, which can take over an hour, is supposed to induce a curative fever, drawing out all the body's impurities through the pores. You lie there, trapped and shivering, listening to the frantic beating of your own heart. It is profoundly uncomfortable, claustrophobic, and frightening. There is no gentle humor in this. It's a deeply unpleasant and isolating experience. Historians still argue whether the supposed benefits of these treatments were purely psychological, a placebo effect born of enduring such a dramatic and expensive ordeal, or if the repeated shocks to the system did have some physiological impact. The wet sheet pack is only the beginning. Your day is a relentless series of water-based treatments. There are douches, where a high-powered jet of ice-cold water is sprayed at specific parts of your body. There are drip baths, where you lie under a steady, maddening drip of cold water on your head or back. You are made to walk barefoot in the dew-covered grass at dawn. Your diet is simple and bland, and you drink copious amounts of cold water, sometimes 8 to 10 glasses before breakfast, to flush the system internally. There is no laudanum here, no soothing syrups. There is only the shock, the shiver, and the steel-willed endurance of the patient. The human capacity to believe in a cure, to subject oneself to such discomfort in the hope of relief, is on full display. This was their form of resilience, a belief that health could be earned through hardship. So before this great story continues, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you're enjoying our journey together. Your support means the world. After days of this relentless regimen, you do feel something. The constant shocks and the rigid schedule leave you exhausted in a way that the simple long walk never could. It's an exhaustion that penetrates deeper than the muscles, a weariness of the very spirit. At night, you fall into bed not because you are calm or relaxed, but because you are utterly beaten down, your body and mind too tired to fight anymore. Sleep comes, but it is the sleep of surrender, not of peace. You lie there, listening to the distant sounds of the hydrotherapy establishment, and wonder if this violent, chilling embrace of water is truly a cure, or just a different form of punishment. Your time at the hydrotherapy sanatorium comes to an end. You return to the city, your system thoroughly flushed and toned. For a short while, the sheer memory of the wet sheet packs and icy douches seems to be enough to scare you into a state of submission at bedtime. The exhaustion you brought back with you from the country lingers. But the city, with its noise, its worries, and its thick, coal-dusted air, soon begins to work its old, unwelcome magic. The familiar anxiety starts to creep back in, and the nights of restless tossing and turning resume. The violent shock of the water cure was a temporary fix, not a lasting peace. You have tried the pantry, the pavement, the patent bottle, the poppy, and the painful plunge. What else is there? It turns out there is an entire world of other options, born from the unique intersection of Victorian ingenuity, entrepreneurial spirit, and a complete lack of scientific oversight. This is the age of the inventor, the amateur scientist, the man in his workshop tinkering with gears and wires, convinced he can solve the problems of humanity with a clever new device. If sleep could not be coaxed, drugged, or shocked into appearing, then perhaps it could be engineered. You are about to enter the bizarre world of mechanical insomnia cures. Your first encounter with this world comes from an advertisement in a popular magazine. It's for Professor Thompson's patented somnambulic vibrating chair. The illustration shows a well-dressed gentleman sitting comfortably in an ornate, padded armchair. The text makes grand claims, harnessing the gentle, rhythmic vibrations of the natural world. This chair soothes the agitated nerves, promotes healthy circulation, and lulls the user into a state of profound and natural relaxation. A 20-minute session before retiring is guaranteed to banish sleeplessness. It sounds scientific, modern, and most importantly, comfortable. There are no cold sheets or bitter potions involved. You purchase one. The chair is a heavy, cumbersome piece of furniture, upholstered in dark green velvet. Hidden within its plush exterior is a clockwork mechanism. You wind it up with a large key, a process that involves a loud series of clicks and whirs. Then you sit down and pull a lever. The entire chair springs to life with a low, grinding hum and begins to shake. It is not the gentle, rhythmic vibration promised in the advertisement. It's a vigorous, rattling, teeth-jarring shudder. It feels less like a soothing massage and more like sitting on a piece of industrial farm equipment. The vibrations travel up your spine and make your vision blur. You try to relax into it, to let the somnambulic waves work their magic, but it's impossible. You just feel like you're being violently rattled. After your 20-minute session, you get up feeling dizzy, slightly nauseous, and with a new appreciation for solid ground. The only thing it has lulled is your faith in magazine advertisements. Undeterred, you seek out other mechanical solutions. The next one you try is based on a different theory. That insomnia is caused by an overheated brain. All that thinking, worrying, and intellectual activity, the theory goes, generates an excess of heat in the head, which prevents the brain from shutting down. The solution: a cerebral cooling helmet. The device is a strange-looking leather cap, lined with a series of rubber tubes. You are to fill a reservoir with ice-cold water, which then circulates through the tubes around your scalp, drawing the morbid heat away from your feverish brain. You sit in a chair, the leather helmet strapped tightly to your head, the tubes cold against your scalp. A steady trickle of water, which you have to replenish with ice chips, flows through the device. It is a strange and deeply unpleasant sensation. A cold, wet feeling slowly spreads across your head, while the rest of your body remains warm. The constant dripping sound from the outflow tube is a new and specific kind of torture. A tiny, maddening water clock measuring out your failure to relax. There is no historical consensus on whether these devices ever actually worked. They likely just added another layer of profound discomfort to the already difficult experience of trying to sleep. You sit there, your head freezing, your body tense, feeling utterly ridiculous. This is not the dignified march of scientific progress. It's a desperate, clumsy stab in the dark. Your journey through the world of sleep gadgets doesn't end there. You encounter the electropathic belt, a device embedded with zinc and copper discs that, when worn against the skin, was supposed to generate a gentle electric current to recharge the body's vital energies. You try it on. It feels like wearing a cold, metallic belt. You feel no current, no recharging, nothing but the uncomfortable pressure of the metal discs against your skin. You read about magnetotherapy, where patients would sleep on beds with giant magnets embedded in the mattress, aligning their bodies with the Earth's magnetic field to restore harmony and promote rest. There's no modern equivalent to this. No app to download, no smart device to wear. This is a physical, mechanical world where problems are met with tangible and often absurd contraptions. These devices represent a fascinating moment in the history of medicine. It's a point where the old, humoral theories of the body, based on balance and vital fluids, were colliding with the new, exciting discoveries of the industrial age. Electricity, magnetism, and mechanics. Inventors and quacks alike were quick to co-opt the language of this new science without any real understanding of it. They would sprinkle words like galvanic, vibrations, and magnetic flux into their marketing, giving their absurd devices a veneer of cutting-edge legitimacy. It was a powerful combination. The allure of a secret, ancient natural force combined with the promise of modern scientific engineering. You sit in your room, surrounded by the evidence of your failed experiments. The vibrating chair sits silently in the corner. The cerebral cooling helmet lies coiled like a strange leather snake on your dresser. You are no closer to a restful night. These gadgets, these mechanical promises of peace, have proven to be as empty as the patent medicine bottles. They are monuments to human ingenuity and hope, but also to human gullibility. They speak to the profound desire for a simple, easy fix, a desire that transcends any particular era. The resilience here is not in the success of the inventions, but in the relentless optimism of the inventor and the consumer alike, who, faced with the mystery of sleeplessness, were willing to try anything, no matter how bizarre it seemed, in the hope of finding a good night's rest. The vibrating chair gathers dust in the corner, a silent, velvet-clad monument to your gullibility. The cerebral cooling helmet is tucked away in a drawer, a ridiculous secret you'd rather forget. You have exhausted the mechanical cures, and in doing so, you feel you have exhausted all respectable physical options. You have treated your body as a machine to be exercised, a vessel to be flushed, a system to be drugged, and a mechanism to be vibrated and cooled. Yet the problem persists, gnawing away at your nights and casting a long shadow over your days. The sleeplessness has become more than an ailment. It has become a part of your identity. And now you must confront the most insidious theory of all, that the problem is not in your body, but in your character. You find yourself in the study of a new kind of specialist. He is not a medical doctor who prods and pokes, nor an inventor with a newfangled device. He is a man of letters, a philosopher, perhaps even a clergyman. He leans back in his leather chair, a portrait of calm, intellectual authority. He has listened patiently to your long, weary tale of failed cures. When you are finished, he doesn't suggest a new diet or a different type of bath. Instead, he looks at you with an expression of gentle, pitying concern and tells you that the root of your affliction is moral and intellectual. This was a deeply pervasive and punishing belief in the 19th century. Insomnia, particularly among the educated and affluent classes, was often framed not as a medical condition, but as a symptom of a disordered soul. In a society that prized productivity, self-discipline, and piety above all else, The inability to sleep was seen as a sign that you were failing at all three. Your sleeplessness was evidence of a hidden weakness, a flaw in your very nature. This conversation is not a medical consultation, it is a moral reckoning. The specialist explains his theory. Your mind, he says, is ill-governed. You allow your worries to run rampant, a sign of a lack of faith and mental fortitude. A pious, well-ordered mind, he suggests, would naturally turn its troubles over to a higher power and accept the peace that follows. Your continued wakefulness implies that you are clinging to your anxieties, indulging in them, even. He asks about your reading habits. Are you consuming sensational novels? The thrilling, emotionally charged stories that were becoming wildly popular were seen as a major cause of nervous excitement. These penny dreadfuls and melodramatic romances were thought to overstimulate the imagination, leaving it in a state of agitated arousal that was incompatible with sleep. He advises you to stick to scripture, serene poetry, and dry, historical texts, works that would elevate the mind without exciting it. He then turns to the question of your daily activities. Are you engaging in conversations that are too stimulating in the evenings? Debates about politics, science, or other controversial topics were to be avoided after dinner. The evening was meant for quiet contemplation, gentle music, or light, edifying conversation. He suggests that perhaps you think too much. This is a common diagnosis, especially for women. An overactive intellect, particularly in the weaker female mind, was thought to be a direct path to nervous disorders, including insomnia. The cure was to consciously stop thinking, to cultivate a state of placid mental emptiness. How one is supposed to consciously stop thinking is a question he leaves unanswered. It is presented as a simple act of will. This moral diagnosis is a terrible burden to bear. It transforms your private struggle into a public failing. Every yawn during the day, every dark circle under your eyes, is no longer just a sign of tiredness. It's a physical manifestation of your weak character, your poor self-discipline, your unwholesome intellectual habits. Your friends and family, meaning well, begin to offer moral advice instead of sympathy. Have you tried praying more earnestly? You must learn to master your thoughts. Perhaps you should occupy your mind with more charitable work and less idle worry. They are not trying to be cruel. They are reflecting the dominant cultural understanding of your problem. Historians point to this as a powerful tool of social control, a way to enforce conformity to social norms of piety and emotional restraint. You leave the specialist study feeling heavier than when you arrived. You now carry not just the physical weariness of sleeplessness, in addition to the weight of guilt and shame. You try to follow his advice. You put away the exciting novel you were reading and pick up a book of sermons instead. You find the prose dense, the arguments circular, and your mind wanders more than ever. You try to police your thoughts in the evening, pushing away any worry or interesting idea that pops into your head. The effort is exhausting. It's like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push it down, the more forcefully it pops back up. You attempt to pray with more fervor, but your prayers feel like negotiations, desperate pleas for a transaction, piety in exchange for sleep. And the guilt over this perceived lack of genuine faith only adds to your anxiety. The very act of trying to be morally and mentally good, enough to deserve sleep, becomes the single most stressful, all-consuming, and sleep-depriving activity in your life. There is no simple way to measure if you are succeeding. How do you know if your mind is sufficiently governed? How can you tell if your soul is placid enough? The lack of any objective metric makes it a perfect, self-perpetuating cycle of anxiety and failure. This was the quiet cruelty of the Victorian moral cure. It offered no real tools, no practical solutions, only a set of impossible standards and the crushing judgment that came with failing to meet them. It was a testament to a society that so often preferred to find a flaw in the individual's character, rather than admit the limits of its own medical and scientific knowledge. Your resilience is tested not against a physical hardship, but against an intangible, unwinnable war with your own mind. You lie in bed at night, no longer just a person who can't sleep, but a sinner, a slacker, a weak-willed intellectual lightweight who has brought this torment upon yourself. And that, you realize, is the loneliest feeling in the world. The weight of your own perceived moral failure is a heavier blanket than any in your overstuffed bedroom. The advice to simply govern your mind and be more pious has backfired spectacularly, creating a new, intense anxiety around the very act of trying to relax. You feel trapped in a paradox. The more you strive for the mental placidity that is supposed to bring sleep, the more agitated and watchful your mind becomes. You have tried to heal your body and you have tried to purify your soul, and both paths have led to a dead end. It is time to venture into a territory that lies somewhere between the two, a strange and mysterious realm that is neither purely physical nor purely spiritual. It is time to seek out a mesmerist. Mesmerism, the precursor to modern hypnotism, was a sensation in the 19th century. Its originator, Franz Mesmer, proposed the existence of a universal, invisible fluid called animal magnetism. He believed that illness, both physical and mental, was caused by blockages or imbalances in the flow of this fluid through the body. A skilled mesmerist, he claimed, could manipulate this fluid, unblocking the pathways and restoring the patient to health through the power of his own, more potent magnetic field. Though dismissed by the mainstream medical establishment as theatrical quackery, mesmerism captured the public imagination. It was mysterious, it was dramatic, and it promised cures where conventional medicine had failed. For someone as desperate as you, it was an irresistible lure. You find the mesmerist not in a sterile doctor's office, but in his own dimly lit parlor. The room is designed to create an atmosphere of mystery and expectation. Heavy velvet curtains block out the afternoon sun, and the air is thick with the scent of sandalwood incense. He is a striking figure, a man with intense, dark eyes and a calm, commanding presence. He doesn't speak of nerves or sin. He speaks of energies, fluids, and harmonies. He explains that your sleeplessness is a sign that your own magnetic energies are in a state of disarray, a nervous discord. He assures you that he can, through a series of sessions, restore the natural, harmonious flow and bring you the deep rest you seek. Your first session begins. He asks you to sit in a comfortable, high-backed chair. There are no machines, no potions. There is only you, him, and the heavy, incense-scented air. He asks you to relax and breathe deeply. His voice is a low, soothing monotone, and his confidence is absolute. He begins to make a series of slow, deliberate passes with his hands, holding them a few inches from your body, starting at your head and moving down towards your feet. He doesn't touch you. He is, as he explains, combing out the tangles in your magnetic field, smoothing the invisible fluid. You sit there, feeling a strange mixture of skepticism and a desperate will to believe. You feel nothing at first, just the slight movement of the air as his hands pass by. He then focuses his attention on your head. He holds his hands on either side of your temples, again without touching. He tells you to close your eyes. His voice becomes more rhythmic, more persuasive. You are feeling a warmth, he says, a pleasant, gentle warmth spreading through your mind. The agitated thoughts are slowing. The worries are dissolving. A deep sense of calm is washing over you. You want to feel it so badly. And then a strange thing happens. You do start to feel a faint tingling sensation at your temples. Is it his magnetic power? Or is it simply the power of suggestion working on your exhausted, desperate mind? Historians still debate the nature of the mesmeric trance. Was it a genuine altered state of consciousness, a form of self-hypnosis, or merely a theatrical performance by both parties? He continues his monologue of suggestion. Your eyelids are growing heavy, so very heavy, it is a pleasant heaviness. You have no desire to open them. The idea of sleep is becoming a welcome thought, not a struggle but a gentle invitation. You follow his words, and your eyelids do feel like lead weights. The idea of opening them seems to require an impossible effort. You are not asleep, but you are not fully awake either. You are in a strange, passive, and deeply relaxed state. The anxieties that normally scream for your attention have been reduced to a distant murmur. He then looks directly into your closed eyes, as if he can see through the lids. This is the mesmeric gaze, believed to be the most powerful tool for transmitting the magnetic fluid. He leans closer, his voice dropping to a near whisper. Tonight, when you lie in your bed, you will remember this calm. You will feel this same pleasant heaviness. Your mind will be still. You will welcome sleep, and it will come to you deep and dreamless. He repeats these phrases, these post-mesmeric suggestions, over and over, his voice a steady, rhythmic drone. When the session is over, he makes a few quick, upward passes with his hands and snaps his fingers. Awake, he says, his voice back to its normal pitch. Your eyes flutter open. You feel incredibly calm, almost blissfully detached. The room seems brighter, the air lighter. You feel as though you've just woken from a long and profound nap, even though you were conscious the entire time. You leave his parlor feeling a sense of hope that is more powerful than any you have felt before. This was not a punishment or a struggle. It was a gentle, passive experience that seemed to reach the parts of your mind that no medicine or moral lecture could touch. That night, you go to bed with a sense of cautious optimism. As you lie in the dark, you consciously try to recall the mesmerist's soothing voice and the feeling of deep relaxation. You repeat his words to yourself, and for the first time in a long time, the bed does not feel like a battleground. The desperate struggle to force sleep is replaced by a passive waiting. You don't know if it's the lingering effect of his animal magnetism, the power of his suggestions, or simply the psychological relief of having handed your problem over to someone so supremely confident. But as you drift on the edge of consciousness, you realize the mesmerist has given you something invaluable. He has replaced the fear of not sleeping with the possibility that you can. And on this strange, new path, that glimmer of hope is the most potent cure you've found yet. The calm bestowed by the mesmerist, like all the cures before it, proves to be a fleeting visitor. The post-mesmeric suggestions begin to fade, their power dimming with each passing night. The old anxieties, patient and persistent, creep back from the shadows of your mind. Soon, you are right back where you started, lying awake in your cluttered bedroom, listening to the ponderous ticking of the clock, the brief respite making the return of your ailment feel even more cruel. You have now run the gamut of fringe treatments and fashionable fads. There is only one option left, the most drastic and isolating treatment of all. You are to be sent away for a rest cure. This is not a pleasant holiday in the country. The rest cure, pioneered by the influential American physician Silas Weir Mitchell, was a highly structured and extreme form of medical treatment, reserved for the most severe cases of nervous exhaustion, hysteria, and, of course, chronic insomnia. It was particularly popular for treating women of the upper and middle classes. The underlying theory was that the nervous system was like a depleted battery that needed to be completely shut down in order to recharge. The cure was a radical enforcement of total and absolute rest, a complete withdrawal from every form of physical, intellectual, and emotional stimulation. You arrive at a private sanatorium, a quiet, somber building that feels more like a well-appointed prison than a place of healing. You are immediately separated from your family and friends. All contact with the outside world is severed. There are no letters, no newspapers, no visitors. Your life, for the next 6 to 8 weeks, will be confined to a single room. You are, in effect, being placed in solitary confinement for your own good. This isolation was considered a crucial part of the treatment, designed to break the patient of their unhealthy habits and dependencies and make them completely reliant on the authority of the doctor. Your room is deliberately bland and understimulating. There is no busy wallpaper, no trinkets on the mantelpiece, no pile of books on the nightstand. The curtains are kept drawn. The room is a blank slate, an environment of sensory deprivation. Upon arrival, you are put to bed, and you are not allowed to leave it for any reason. You will spend the next several weeks lying flat on your back, forbidden from sitting up. You are not allowed to read, to write, to draw, or even to feed yourself. A silent, stern-faced nurse attends to your every need. She brushes your hair, she washes you, she cuts your food and places it in your mouth. You are reduced to a state of complete infancy, a passive object to be managed and cared for. The core of the treatment is a combination of this profound inactivity with a regimen of massive overfeeding. The theory was that nervous individuals had depleted their body's reserves of fat, and that rebuilding this fatty tissue was essential for padding and protecting the nerves. Every 2 hours, the nurse arrives with food. It starts with milk. You are made to drink glass after glass of rich, full-fat milk, far beyond the point of thirst or hunger. Soon, the diet expands. You are fed huge meals of beef, mutton, bread and butter and thick, sugary puddings. You are force-fed, spoon by spoon, long after you feel full. The feeling of constant, bloated fullness becomes a physical torment, a new discomfort to replace the old anxiety. In between feedings, the nurse administers massage and electrical stimulation. Since you are not allowed to move, your muscles must be worked on passively to prevent atrophy. The nurse kneads and rubs your limbs with a firm, impersonal touch. It is not a relaxing spa massage. It is a functional, mechanical procedure. After the massage, she attaches electrodes to your arms and legs and applies a mild electrical current, causing your muscles to twitch and contract involuntarily. This combination of force feeding, sensory deprivation, and physical passivity was the heart of the cure. You lie in the dim, quiet room, your body bloated and your muscles twitching from the electricity, with nothing to do but stare at the blank ceiling and think. Of course, thinking was precisely what you were not supposed to be doing. But in the absence of any other stimulation, your mind becomes a vast, echoing chamber. Without the distractions of daily life, your worries and fears loom larger than ever. There is no escape. The sheer, mind-numbing boredom is a form of torture in itself. The days blend into one another, punctuated only by the arrival of the nurse with another glass of milk or another plate of beef. Historians and literary scholars, like those who study the semi-autobiographical story, The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, who herself underwent a modified rest cure, see this treatment as profoundly damaging, particularly for intelligent, creative women. It was a system designed to crush the patient's will, to break their spirit, and to remold them into a more placid, docile, and socially acceptable form. You feel your own will beginning to erode. The fight goes out of you. You become passive, compliant. It is simply easier to drink the milk, to eat the pudding, to let the nurse move your limbs for you, than it is to resist. You stop thinking about the outside world because it feels too distant, too unreal. Your entire universe shrinks to the four walls of this room, to the taste of milk and the hum of the electrical machine. Sleep, when it comes, is not a gentle visitor. It is a leaden, stupefied slumber, the product of sheer boredom, sensory deprivation, and a body overwhelmed by a constant state of digestion. It is the sleep of a hibernating bear, not a rested human. You are indeed resting, but you are not healing. You are being systematically dismantled, your individuality erased in the name of a cure. The resilience required here is not to get better, but simply to survive the treatment itself without losing your mind completely. Weeks crawl by in the silent, bland room of the sanatorium. Your world has been reduced to the rhythmic cycle of forced feeding, passive massage, and the low hum of the electrical stimulation machine. You have become a creature of pure passivity. Eventually, the doctor declares your rest cure a success. You have gained a significant amount of weight. Your nervous energy has been suppressed, and you have been successfully broken of your old, restless habits. You are finally allowed to sit up, then to stand, then to take a few wobbly steps around the room. It feels like learning to walk all over again. You are pronounced cured and sent back home. You step out of the sanatorium and the real world hits you like a physical blow. The colors seem impossibly bright, the sounds deafeningly loud. The complex smell of the city street, the coal smoke, the horses, the food vendors, is overwhelming after weeks of breathing only the sterile air of your room. You feel fragile, unsteady, a ghost returned to a world that has moved on without you. Your reunion with your family is awkward. You look healthier, plumper, but your eyes are dull, and you feel a profound sense of detachment from these people you are supposed to love. You have been gone, not just physically, but mentally, and finding your way back into the flow of family life is a daunting task. The morning after your return, you are faced with the challenge that your cure was meant to prepare you for. Waking up to a normal Victorian day after a night spent with the legacy of your treatments. You did sleep last night, a heavy, dreamless slumber born of the sanatorium's routine. But it was not a restorative sleep. You wake feeling sluggish and foggy, your mind thick and slow. This is the lingering effect of the rest cure, a state of induced placidity that feels more like a concussion than a state of wellness. But the day will not wait for your mind to clear. The first task is simply getting dressed. After weeks of wearing nothing but a simple nightdress, the restrictive architecture of Victorian clothing feels like a suit of armor. The corset is a brutal shock, squeezing your newly padded torso and making it difficult to take a deep breath. The layers of petticoats and the heavy fabric of your dress feel like lead weights. Just the act of putting on your clothes is exhausting, a reminder of the rigid social expectations you are now expected to step back into. You look in the mirror and see a stranger, a fuller-faced, healthier-looking person, but one whose spirit feels profoundly tired. You go down to breakfast. The memory of the force feeding in the sanatorium has given you a deep aversion to food. The sight of a full plate of eggs and ham, which once would have been appealing, now triggers a wave of nausea. You pick at your food, the simple act of eating now fraught with the psychological baggage of your cure. This highlights a stark contrast to modern approaches, where nutrition is seen as a source of positive energy, not a tool for suppression. For you, food has become a symbol of your powerlessness, of being treated like a farm animal being fattened for market. You attempt to engage with the day's tasks. For a man, this might mean returning to an office, to the world of commerce and finance. For a woman, it means managing the household, a complex job involving overseeing servants, planning meals, and managing social calendars. But your mind, so long forced into idleness, refuses to engage. You find it impossible to concentrate. Reading a letter is a struggle. The words seem to blur on the page. Making a simple decision feels like a monumental intellectual effort. The laudanum made you foggy, but this is different. This is a deep, systemic lethargy, a feeling that your brain's gears are rusted shut. You think back on the other cures and their after effects. A day after a night spent with Dr. Barton's soothing syrup was a day of headaches and a foul, chemical taste in your mouth. A day after a night of laudanum-induced sleep was one of strange emotional detachment and irritability, where the world seemed muted and distant. A day after a night of vigorous walking was a day of sore muscles and physical aches, where every step was a painful reminder of your efforts. A day after a night of hydrotherapy was a day of shivering and feeling chilled to the bone, a deep, internal cold that no fireplace could seem to warm. Each cure for the night's troubles inflicted its own unique punishment on the day that followed. There was no concept of sleep hygiene as we know it, no understanding that the path to a good night's sleep begins with healthy, balanced habits during the day. Instead, the Victorian approach was one of violent intervention. They treated insomnia not as a symptom of a larger imbalance, but as an enemy to be drugged, shocked, or suffocated into submission. The result was that the battle for the night was often lost during the following day. The cures themselves perpetuated a cycle of unwellness, leaving you ill-equipped to handle the very stresses that were likely contributing to your insomnia in the first place. As the afternoon wears on, a familiar, dreaded feeling begins to surface: the anxiety about the coming night. You feel the pressure to perform your wellness, to prove that the expensive and extreme rest cure actually worked. But you know, with a sinking feeling in your gut, that the sluggishness will eventually wear off, and the old, agitated wakefulness will be waiting for you. You have been through a gauntlet of treatments, each one leaving its own scar. You have survived them, a testament to your endurance. But you have not been healed. You have simply been battered into a temporary silence. And as dusk begins to fall, you are faced with the terrifying realization that you are back at square one, armed with nothing but the memory of failed cures and the prospect of another long night ahead. You sit in yet another doctor's office. This one is the most eminent, the most expensive, the one you have come to as a last resort. You have recounted your entire saga: the stuffy bedroom, the divided sleep, the pantry cures, the exhausting walks, the patent syrups, the laudanum, the vibrating chair, the chilling water, the moral lectures, the mesmerist, and the soul-crushing rest cure. You have endured a catalog of Victorian medicine's greatest hits and biggest misses. The doctor, a man with a gray beard and an air of unimpeachable authority, listens to your story without interruption. When you are finished, he doesn't offer a new potion or a new machine. He simply nods, a flicker of knowing pity in his eyes, and gives your condition its true, final, and most unassailable diagnosis. Your problem, he explains, is a simple one. You are a woman. He proceeds to explain that your sleeplessness, your anxiety, your nervous exhaustion, all of it can be attributed to the inherent and inescapable delicacy of your female constitution. You are suffering from a classic case of feminine nerves, a condition as mysterious and unpredictable as womanhood itself. This was the ultimate catch-all diagnosis of the era, a convenient intellectual box into which a vast range of female complaints could be tidily placed and dismissed. It was not just about insomnia. It covered everything from anxiety and depression to simple dissatisfaction with a restrictive life. The doctor's explanation is a masterpiece of condescending circular logic. He tells you that the female nervous system is naturally more sensitive, more finely tuned, and therefore more prone to disorder than a man's. It is, he says, like a delicate harp, easily knocked out of tune by the slightest disturbance. A man's nervous system, by contrast, is like a sturdy drum built to withstand the stresses of the world. Therefore, the very things a man might handle with ease, intellectual work, financial worries, emotional excitement, are potentially ruinous for you. Your insomnia is not a failure of your character, as the moralist suggested, but a natural consequence of your biological destiny. He then turns to the subject of your womb. This, he explains, is the true center of your nervous universe. The uterine environment, he lectures, exerts a powerful, almost tyrannical influence over your entire being, from your physical health to your emotional stability. Any slight irregularity, any hidden inflammation, any congestion in this mysterious organ can manifest as a riot in the nervous system, with insomnia being a classic symptom. The idea that a woman's entire identity and health were dictated by her reproductive organs was a central and deeply damaging tenet of Victorian medicine. It reduced you from a complex individual to a walking, talking set of biological functions. This gendered lens colored the interpretation of all your previous attempts at a cure. Your failure to respond to the vigorous walks, predictable. Such strenuous activity is too taxing for the delicate female frame. The failure of the rest cure, not the cure's fault, but a sign of how deeply entrenched your feminine hysteria had become. Your flirtation with laudanum, a classic example of the female tendency toward emotional extremes and a craving for artificial sensation. Even the very act of seeking out so many cures is presented as a symptom of the disease, a typically hysterical and flighty search for novelty. There is no escape. Every action you take, every failure you've experienced, is reframed as further proof of your inherently flawed and unstable female nature. Historians argue that this medical viewpoint was not just a matter of scientific ignorance, but a powerful tool for reinforcing the rigid gender roles of the era. By defining women as inherently fragile, nervous, and prone to illness, it justified keeping them out of universities, professions, and public life. A woman's place was in the home because the outside world was simply too stimulating, too dangerous for her delicate constitution. Your illness, therefore, is not just a personal problem. It is a social and political one. Your sleeplessness is used as evidence to support a worldview that confines you. The doctor's prescribed treatment, therefore, is not about finding a cure, but about managing your incurable condition. He advises a life of radical moderation. You are to avoid all intellectual strain. No more challenging books, no more political discussions. You should not worry about finances or household management. You should leave such coarse matters to your husband. You are to avoid all emotional excitement, both positive and negative. No thrilling novels, no dramatic plays, no passionate arguments. Your life should be a calm, placid, and profoundly boring routine. Your purpose is not to achieve, to create, or to strive, but simply to remain calm and, above all, to reproduce. He might even suggest marriage as a cure, believing that the calming influence of a husband and the natural fulfillment of motherhood would regulate your entire system. You leave his office feeling a strange and terrible mix of emotions. In one sense, it's a relief. You are no longer to blame. Your sleeplessness is not your fault. It is an innate part of your being. But this relief is quickly replaced by a profound sense of hopelessness. You have been handed a life sentence of managed decline. You are not a person with a problem that can be solved. You are a problem, a walking, pre-existing condition. The cure is not to get better, but to become smaller, quieter, less engaged, less ambitious, less you. This was the ultimate resilience required of many Victorian women, not to overcome their ailments, but to endure a life lived in a cage built of medical theory and social expectation, to survive not just the sleepless nights, but the belittling, confining, and spirit-crushing cures offered by a world that saw their gender as the primary pathology. You stand at a crossroads, having been led down every bizarre, painful, and demeaning path the Victorian world has to offer for your sleeplessness. You have been treated as a faulty machine, a moral degenerate, and a defective woman. Every cure has been a dead end, leaving you more exhausted and disillusioned than before. The pronouncements of the eminent doctor, who diagnosed your very womanhood as the disease, echo in your mind, a sentence to a life of quiet desperation. It would be easy to surrender, to accept the life of placid boredom he prescribed, to shrink yourself to fit the tiny box they have built for you. But a spark of the person you were before all this began, curious, resilient, unwilling to be so easily defined, still remains. It is this spark that leads you away from the grand offices of established physicians and into a different kind of space, a university lecture hall. It is not a place you are necessarily welcome. The air is thick with the smell of chalk dust and old paper, and the room is filled almost exclusively with young men in dark suits, their faces a mixture of earnest concentration and youthful arrogance. You find a seat in the back, an inconspicuous observer in a world that is not yet ready to fully accept you. The lecturer at the front is a new type of scholar, a man who is not a moralist or a mesmerist, but a neuroanatomist. He is not talking about animal magnetism, uterine congestion, or the state of your soul. He is talking about the brain. He uses a projector to cast a magnified image of a stained nerve cell onto the screen. It looks like a tiny, intricate tree, its branches reaching out into the darkness. He speaks of axons, dendrites, and synapses, a new language for a new science. He explains that thoughts, feelings, and even consciousness itself are not mysterious vapors or spiritual essences, but the product of electrical and chemical signals passing between these cells. He admits that what he is presenting is a frontier, a vast and largely unmapped territory. He acknowledges that they do not yet understand how these physical processes create the subjective experience of being alive, let alone how they go wrong in a condition like insomnia. But the core assertion is revolutionary. The mind is not an abstract entity floating somewhere in the soul. It is a physical process, rooted in the tangible, biological matter of the brain. This lecture represents the dawn of a new science, the slow, cautious shift away from the mystical and moralistic cures of the past. For centuries, the brain was a black box. You could see the results of its dysfunction, insanity, seizures, sleeplessness, but you couldn't look inside to understand the mechanism. The work of scientists like Santiago Ramon y Cajal, who established the neuron as the basic unit of the nervous system, was beginning to pry open that box. This was a direct challenge to the old guard. It threatened the authority of the doctor who diagnosed based on gender, the clergyman who diagnosed based on sin, and the mesmerist who diagnosed based to invisible fluids. It proposed that the answers lay not in philosophy or metaphysics, but in the laboratory under the microscope. As you listen, you feel a profound sense of vindication. The idea that your struggle is located in the microscopic pathways of your brain, rather than in a flaw in your character or your womb, is incredibly liberating. It reframes your condition as a biological problem, not a personal failing. It means that a cure might one day be found, not through prayer or punishment, but through understanding. The lecturer talks about early, crude experiments with chemical compounds that seem to affect the nervous system. He mentions bromides, which were being used as sedatives, and chloral hydrate. These were clumsy, often dangerous tools, the pharmaceutical equivalent of hitting a complex machine with a hammer. But they represented a crucial change in thinking. The idea that you could chemically target the processes of the brain to induce sleep. This new science was not without its own forms of arrogance and error. Early neurologists often fell into the trap of crude materialism, believing that all human experience could be reduced to simple mechanics. They still held many of the same prejudices about race and gender as their predecessors, simply cloaking them in the new language of neurology. There is a scholarly debate about how much this new scientific approach was simply old wine in a new bottle, replacing one set of dogmas with another. But even with these limitations, the fundamental shift was undeniable. The questions were changing. Instead of asking, "Is this person virtuous?" they were beginning to ask, "How does this person's brain work?" You leave the lecture hall feeling a sense of intellectual excitement you haven't felt in years. The world of medicine, which has been the source of so much of your suffering, suddenly seems filled with possibility again. You may not be cured tomorrow, or even in your lifetime. The men in that lecture hall do not have the answers yet, but they are finally starting to ask the right questions. They are mapping the territory where your struggle actually lives. You realize that your personal, painful journey has coincided with a great turning point in human history. The moment when we began to look for the secrets of the mind inside the brain itself. That night, for the first time in a very long time, you go to bed without a sense of dread. You have not been given a new cure, but you have been given a new perspective. Your insomnia is no longer a sign of your personal inadequacy. It is a complex biological puzzle. You are not a broken soul. You are a person with a challenging neurochemistry. This understanding doesn't magically make you sleep, but it removes the terrible weight of shame and guilt. The resilience you have shown, the stubborn refusal to be broken by all the foolish and cruel treatments, suddenly feels like a strength, not a symptom. You are a survivor of a medical dark age, and you have lived to see the first, faint glimmers of the dawn of a new and more hopeful science. You lie in your bed, the same bed where this long, strange journey began. The room is still full of heavy furniture, the air still thick without an open window. the clock in the hall still ticking its steady, relentless rhythm. But something fundamental has changed. It is not the room that is different, it is you. You are no longer desperately seeking a magic potion, a violent shock, or a moral absolution. You have survived the Victorian night, and in doing so, you have found a quiet, hard-won peace that no doctor or mesmerist could give you. You reflect on the parade of cures you have endured. You think of the bland, hopeful taste of onion porridge, a testament to the simple faith people placed in the contents of their own pantries. You recall the aching muscles after a forced march through the smoky city streets, a symbol of the belief that virtue and vigor were one and the same. You can almost feel the phantom rattling of the vibrating chair, a monument to the era's charming and completely unfounded faith in mechanical solutions. These weren't just failed treatments. They were artifacts of a world grappling with a problem it did not understand, using the only tools it had: tradition, discipline, and a boundless, often misguided ingenuity. You remember the sweet, cloying promise of Dr. Barton's soothing syrup and the bitter, scientific allure of laudanum. These bottles, sitting in so many medicine cabinets, represent the era's dangerous dance with powerful chemicals it had not yet learned to respect. The widespread, casual use of opiates was a quiet catastrophe, a hidden epidemic whose true scale historians can only guess at. Your own narrow escape from that path fills you with a chilling sense of gratitude. You survived not just your sleeplessness, but the very medicines that promised to cure it. You shudder, even now, at the memory of the wet sheet pack, the profound, shivering cold of the hydrotherapy cure. You can feel the phantom weight of the rest cure, the soul-crushing boredom, and the indignity of being treated like a prize animal being fattened. These extreme treatments, born of absolute certainty and profound ignorance, tested the limits of your endurance. Surviving them required a resilience that is almost difficult to comprehend. It was the resilience of a prisoner, the ability to hold onto a tiny core of selfhood while being subjected to a system designed to erase it. And you recall the final, crushing diagnosis of feminine nerves, the attempt to define your entire existence as a pathology. You resisted that too. You refused to shrink, to disappear into the placid, mindless life they prescribed for you. Tonight you will likely wake up at 2 in the morning. The old pattern of segmented sleep, the first and second sleep of your ancestors, is deeply ingrained in you. But you will not greet it with panic. You will not see it as a failure. You will rise, light a candle, and sit with a book, not a dull book of sermons to sedate your mind, but a book you actually want to read. You will use that quiet, contemplative time as it was meant to be used. You have come to accept the rhythm of your own body, to stop fighting it, to stop trying to force it into the unnatural shape of a single, uninterrupted block of slumber that the modern, industrialized world would soon demand. You understand now that your journey was not just a personal one. You have been a witness to the painful birth of modern sleep science. The failures of the past were necessary mistakes. The dead ends had to be explored before the right path could be found. The absurdities of the vibrating chair and the cerebral cooling helmet highlighted the need for genuine, evidence-based research. The tragedies of laudanum addiction spurred the movement for pharmaceutical regulation. The cruelty of the rest cure and the misogyny of the feminine nerves diagnosis fueled the fight for a more humane and equitable form of medicine. Your suffering, and the suffering of millions like you, was the dark, fertile ground from which a better understanding would eventually grow. Their resilience paved the way for our comfort. As you lie there, a genuine, natural drowsiness begins to settle over you. It is not the heavy, drugged stupor of laudanum or the exhausted surrender of the water cure. It is a gentle, welcome tiredness. You have survived. You have endured the onion porridge and the vibrating chairs, the moralizing and the medical misogyny. You have found a way to make peace with the night. And in this quiet, final victory, you close your eyes and drift into the sleep you have earned. The story of the Victorian insomniac is a strange and often humorous tale, but it is also a profound reminder of how far our understanding of sleep has come. We now live in a world of sleep clinics, of brainwave analysis, of medications designed with a specific and targeted understanding of neurochemistry. We have a language for sleep, REM, deep sleep, circadian rhythms. That would have sounded like pure science fiction to the people in our story tonight. Their struggles, their desperate attempts to find rest with the clumsy tools they had, highlight our own incredible good fortune. The next time you find yourself restless, remember that you will not be prescribed an onion porridge or a cold sheet wrap. You have access to a world of knowledge and comfort that they could only dream of. Their resilience in the face of such profound misunderstanding is a quiet testament to the enduring human spirit, the simple, powerful need to find peace in the dark. So as you settle deeper into your own comfortable bed, in your own quiet room, let go of the day. Appreciate the simple, miraculous peace of a night free from vibrating chairs and cerebral cooling helmets. Allow your mind to be still, not because it is a moral duty, but because it is a gentle gift you can give yourself. Let the strange tale of the Victorian night fade away, leaving only a sense of gratitude and a deep, profound calm. Let the darkness be a soft blanket, a safe harbor, and allow yourself to drift into the simple, easy, and restorative sleep that awaits you.